Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of In Distress, a podcast where I talk about nonsense in the comfort of my childhood bedroom. Full transparency, I was having an existential crisis earlier this week, and because of that, I do not have topics for this week's episode. So I'm just going to go off the dome. It's going to be great, though. It's going to be great. You guys are getting vintage Tori, okay? You guys are getting vintage In Distress podcast because this is actually what I used to do. I didn't used to plan what I was going to talk about until like maybe the day of. And even then, I probably wouldn't even have anything to really talk about. I would just come on the mic and yap. And it was a great time then. It's going to be a great time now. Anywho, back to the existential crisis. So I was actually thinking about joining the Peacecorp. Yeah. And like, I was very serious at this time. I was on the website. I was looking at the openings. I was looking at which countries were open. I was doing a lot of things. I was even like deep in a subreddit where people from the Peace Corps were talking about their experience and all of these things. And people were asking who want to go are asking people for their advice and what they think. And I was deep in there. But what I heard or read was somebody had said it's probably the easiest job that you'll hate or something like that. Or it's like the easiest job and the hardest job at the same time, something like that. That's what people say about the Peace Corps. I was watching people on YouTube talk about their experiences. I was in there, okay? And it's really just because of something I'm going to get to in a second. But I'm going to relate all of these things together by the end of the episode. It's going to be great. But I was thinking about doing that because I really just kind of want to change in my life. And I don't really know what that change needs to be. But I do want to change, yes. I'm not going to just up and move across the country because I'm not financially stable enough to do that. But also, I do want to move. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think that I really just want to be doing things, like living my life on my own, and making my own decisions and stuff like that. Not that I don't make my own decisions now. It's just like annoying a little bit at this time to kind of have to just tell people what you're doing, where you're going all the time. And I think that it would be really great for me. I really enjoyed my time away from home, like my freshman year of college. Yeah, did I come home every weekend? Well, yes. But I was having a good time. Like, I enjoyed, like, just experiencing life with new people and making new friends and stuff. And I know that society has definitely taken a toll socially in terms of like going out and making friends and stuff like that. And it's definitely harder to do that than it used to be. And it's definitely harder to do that when you're not in school or something like that. But I do want to make a change, but also being an adult, I feel like you have to think that change through. Like you can't just, like you don't just up and do things. Like that would be idiotic and illogical. So it's kind of like I have to make sure that my intentions are clear first. And I didn't want to just make that decision or do something out of impulse or just because I'm going through something like mentally and I'm feeling a little unstable at this time. So yeah, I was thinking about the Peace Corps, and then I actually ended up having a conversation with one of my mutuals on TikTok. So I had like started following this person like I think like in like 2020 or like 2021. They had made like a Barack Obama rap, and it was quite funny. And so I had stitched the video, and then she ended up like liking it and then followed me, and then I followed her back. And so like she comments on my stuff, I comment on her stuff every now and then, and she ended up like sending me like a chat because I had posted about how I was thinking about going to the Peace Corps on TikTok. And she ended up like, we had a conversation, and I was like, yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I just kind of feel like I'm behind in life and I just don't really know what I'm doing. And one thing that people always tell me who are older than me, they're always just like, you know, like, first of all, you're still young. Like, you still have time to figure it out, which is a great reminder, obviously. But also a lot of them will just tell you like, and be very reassuring that like, they don't really know what they're doing either. You know, they're just kind of going through the motions. And she was kind of like, you'll find something and everything comes in time. And I don't know why. I just really needed to hear that at that time, especially because I was spiraling. But I really did need to hear that. It doesn't really make the feelings go away, obviously. But I think it makes it like, it dampens them a bit. I don't really know if anything will ever fix that feeling, or like, because I know I'm going to continue to experience that at different times of my life, and probably a lot during this year. But I think that was just something that I really needed to hear and wanted to share first of all. But yeah, anywho, now we're going to talk about peace in the Middle East, because I was thinking about the Peacecorp stuff. And when I was reading the Reddit threads and stuff, people were talking about how newcomers will kind of ask people who have done it before in like their training sessions, like, oh, like, what's it like? I'm really nervous. I'm a little scared to be doing this. And the people are always like, oh, it's fine. You'll figure it out. You'll land on your feet. You'll be good. And how that's, one, not very comforting, but also two, that I thought it was really interesting, these people's self-awareness, because there were a couple of people who were kind of like, I think a lot of people go into the Peace Corps for different reasons. And a lot of times they are self-righteous, thinking that you can change the world or that you can do this and that. And one of the things that you definitely learn there, and what makes that job so hard, is that realizing that you're not going to change the world, coming to that realization that you can't really, it's hard to do. And I thought that was so important, because I have this conversation a lot, because I'm still breaking it down. That's what it is. I'm still actively breaking down the thought every time I have this conversation on the internet with myself, with my friends. And I saw a TikTok that correlates to that. And it was kind of somebody talking about how everybody wants to be a celebrity, and everybody's trying to be a celebrity. And that want doesn't help the collective. And by the collective, they mean like the people like in countries and different nations, the world doesn't really like that main character idea of like wanting to be a celebrity, wanting to be an influencer, wanting to be famous. Like, it doesn't help people in general get the things that they need, that we all need to survive as humans. And I think that that's a really important perspective. I took that in, digested it. Immediately, though, I had a response, but I needed to think on it a little more. And a couple scrolls later, I ended up seeing another TikTok of this woman talking about, she's like a social media manager. I don't know what her name was. I'll probably, maybe if I edit this, put it on the screen. If I don't edit it, I'm so sorry, girl. But she was talking about Dixie D'Amelio, who's Charli D'Amelio's sister, and how she had made a video about how she hasn't been enjoying making content on the internet and stuff like that. And she kind of made a response to that and was talking more so broadly about how we need to be careful of who we're making famous, who are making influencers, who are making celebrities, stuff like that. And I took that in and I digested it. And then I had this completely other thought, but back to these two for a second, because I'm actually going to connect these. Okay, so keep those two, right? And then I'm about to start this other one. So peace in the Middle East. I know what you're thinking. How does that connect to influencers and celebrities? Hold on. So basically, I think peace in the Middle East is such an interesting topic, because growing up in like 2008 to like 2012 and other times, a lot of times politicians' taglines were like, oh, we're trying to get peace in the Middle East. And being older now and knowing what I know now, obviously knowing that no politician, and especially not America, nobody in power benefits from peace in the Middle East. Okay? That's a hard truth, but it is the truth. I was thinking about it, and really when you take a step back and you really ask yourself about the Middle East, even if you're not like well versed on it, because I'm not well versed, I don't have all the answers. I'm hoping that there's somebody out there who does have the answers and who can have this conversation and can give people the facts. But talking broadly, a lot of the things happening in the Middle East is directly related and correlated to just Western countries not minding their business and staying out of stuff. Because if we're honest, if Western countries stayed out of the Middle East business, we don't have and do not experience and do not see actively this genocide that's happening to Palestinian people. Yeah. But off of that, I remember I ended up writing this paper in high school about the Sunni and the Shias. And what I would do when I was in school was that if I didn't know something, I would just write a paper on it. So I wrote a paper about that, which actually ended up turning into me talking about Islamophobia and the Islamophobia that exists in America. And that ended up turning into more of a broader conversation about how Islamophobia and religion play a role in America and the propaganda that exists within that, and how America has really done a really great job at making sure that people in the Middle East are viewed as terrorists and are just dehumanized in general, so that when things happen over there, we're desensitized to them because we don't view them as people, because we're viewing them as these bad people. And for me, that's a really tough thing, because there are people in America who don't subscribe to white supremacy and don't subscribe to a lot of the things that are going on there. Like, there are good people here. The same way that there are good people here, there are good people everywhere. There are good people in Afghanistan. There are good people in Iran. There are good people in literally just everywhere, all over the world. Like, the violence and the things that they go through and they're subjected to because of colonialism or imperialism and all of that, like, it's not right. It's not fair. And even more so, it's definitely not fair that America has done such a great job at making sure that they have dehumanized the people in the Middle East to the point of, like, they've made that place a breeding ground for terrorism. And then they act surprised when they create terrorists. And that's really mind-boggling to me. Not really, but they make sure that there's never any peace in the Middle East because they would gain nothing from that. They don't get oil from countries. They don't pillage and they don't do all of that stuff to the land if there's peace within all of these countries, because then these countries would come together and they would be like, no, you're not coming here and doing that. If every country has conflict, every country has beef with each other, there's no time for them to come together on that stuff. The same way that, like, in America, like, the politicians and the people in power, they get something from us being divided. The same way that exists here on a what you can say micro level, because I'm referring to it as one nation, exists there in the Middle East on a macro level, because I'm considering the Middle East macro because it's multiple nations, not just one. And I just think that that's really crazy. But in, like, writing that paper and in, writing other papers about immigration reform and how the media and how important media literacy is and how the media targets people and stuff like that and targets certain topics in certain states. So when we're talking about, like, when people are outraged about border control in Texas, in New Mexico, in South California, places like that, they're getting, like, the most media on that. Whereas maybe people from Georgia or people from New York or people from Wisconsin or Minnesota, they're not experiencing that same level of outrage because they're not getting the most media coverage on that. Like, a lot of, like, the outrage that people have in certain states and stuff is based on what they're being shown in the media. And obviously border states would be shown more border related media. So they're definitely outraged about that. Whereas somebody from Georgia may see maybe 4 or 5 stories about that throughout a month. But in a state like Texas, they probably see a story like that every single day in multiple stories. So it's like the media, and this is really where like it's important for you to make sure that you're getting your news not only from multiple sources, but from reliable sources. And I'm pretty positive there's no unbiased news source. There's not a single one, because everybody is biased, and because of that, every single news like platform is going to be biased as well. But it's so important to get your news from more than just one side, or like just the people that you like, because they're going to present you with different parts or different facts of the story. So that's important. But also what I really wanted to more so highlight and talk about is, I think the more that you become educated on what's going on in the world, in my global issues class, it was the case of Afghanistan. So we would watch videos and talk about how we got to Afghanistan in the first place, and Iraq and Iran and all these places. And instead of focusing on what America tells you that we're there for, getting a firsthand account of those experiences and like the things that the people on the ground were going through. So when we talk about Afghani women and their rights and all of that stuff, and I think when we talk about that also, a lot of times we talk about how important it is for women to have rights there, and it is. But when you also take a step back and realize that America really left a clear path for like the worst people to get into power in these places, and then they just up and leave, like they did in Afghanistan and other places in the Middle East. And then those places are left maybe more than likely worse than how they were before we got there. And it's just really upsetting. But at the same time that I'm thinking about those things and I'm having those conversations, it's like really important to also highlight that the more you get into politics and the more that you get into learning about the things that are going on in the world and in different countries and the role that America plays in that, I think the more that you realize that, and this is connecting back to the 2 TikToks I was talking about, the more you realize that there's really only so much that you can do. I think it's so important to be optimistic and to be hopeful that things can get better and that things can change, which I've talked about a lot on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to talk about them because I think it's important to break the conversation down and to continue to have the conversation so that you know where you're falling on this spectrum. But I want to have hope and I want to have faith, and some days I do. And then there are also days when I have these realizations and realize that we are creating the very terrorists that we're supposed to be afraid of because of what has been done to them. And when you look at it like that, it's hard to not have compassion for them. Like, these people aren't all evil. Like, everybody has a motivation behind the things that they do, and these people have been hurt and their land has been taken from them. And you know, like, a lot of things happen during war times that people get away with, that they never have to face consequences for. And it's not fair and it's not right to go into somebody else's home or to somebody else's country and do whatever you want in the name of, we're going to make things right and we're trying to get peace for you, and then leave them with like a broken shell of itself, of like the country itself when you leave. It's just not right. And like, if you're not gonna do right by these people, why even go over there? And so that leads me to George Washington, who I think he had a farewell address in like 1776, I think. And he was talking about, he gave 3 warnings in there, and one of the warnings was loosely what was it? It was like, basically, don't let foreign nations or foreign places get involved in like America and what we have going on over here. and really kind of sort of not getting involved in other things. And I think that and I remember I actually, because this was like junior year of high school, I asked my teacher why we didn't do that, like why we didn't listen to that. And his response was, times change and things change, and you just have to adapt as you go. And that was a troublesome response to me. It didn't really answer my question. I understand what he's saying there. I understand sort of, kind of, but at the same time, it's kind of like, this is how we end up in this situation. Not listening and not heeding that warning is kind of how we end up where we're at right now with the Israeli government having a large stake in America. And I just think that is so interesting, that was something that George Washington clearly. So I'm not saying that this man was great. I'm not saying that this is like a top tier man. I don't know too much about George Washington, but he definitely hit the nail on the head with this one about not letting foreign nations get involved in what's going on in America. And we're seeing the direct result of not listening to that and repeating history and stuff like that. Like, I really a lot of times think about like how America could be different if we had kept to those ideals, but at the same time, sticking to those ideals are definitely something that helped play a role in slavery and, white supremacy and racism, and both of those things which exist in the bedrock and the foundation of this country. But at the same time, a broken clock can be right 2 times a day. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think about that, and it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I hope that what people get from this conversation or this topic or whatever is that I think people just have to, do their own research and, listen to all sides of the story or as many sides of the story as they can. And also, I think it's important that we amplify those stories, but not only that, I think it's important that we still keep having hard conversations and that we talk about things that aren't easy to talk about. So yeah, anyways, tying that back to the video, I was thinking like I had kind of touched on at the beginning there, or like a few minutes ago, it's kind of just like, I think that it's important to be hopeful and optimistic about the world and about the change that can be made, or the changes that can be made. But at the same time, kind of understanding that you really just can't fix everything. Sometimes I think that the conversation surrounding like people having main character syndrome and everybody wanted to be a celebrity, everybody wanted to be an influencer, is like, I just find that conversation very boring, because at the end of the day, yeah, it would be so great if in an ideal world we could all just share money and all of these things. But if we're honest, I don't think that humans are cut out for that necessarily. I think a lot of humans are there to protect their own, at least in American society. It's very much not about helping your neighbor. And so I think that having the conversation about celebrities and influencers not sharing their wealth and doing what they need to do for the collective is kind of, like I said, it's just a tedious and mundane conversation. Like, there's nothing new to add to that. Like, I think that just is us having expectations for people who don't have expectations for themselves. And when you think about it like that, again, like, I just don't think it's an important conversation because, or not, it's not important, but I just don't think it's like a conversation that moves the needle, because people aren't, as currently constructed, people in America are not going to change being greedy and money hungry because maybe a couple thousand people called them out on it. Honestly, And it's honestly, like I said, a super tedious conversation for people to talk about how much Rihanna and Taylor Swift and Beyonce are billionaires, and there's no way to be an ethical billionaire, and that they've exploited people. And I totally understand the outrage there. Again, what do people with millions and billions of dollars care about that conversation? Nothing. And the conversation also doesn't move anything forward if you continue to support the stuff that they do. Like, it's really hard for me to take this conversation seriously when people are still doing the same things that they're going to do. Like, I don't know why. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know what the point of calling out somebody is if you're still going to support them, if you're still going to actively play a role in them being an unethical millionaire. If you're going to still actively play a role in that and be like, yeah, she's this, she's not ethical, but this is still a bop though. She still makes hits. What are we having the conversation for at that point? Like, you're continuing the problem. And I get it. You can be critical of people and still enjoy them, which is valid, but sometimes I'm just like, why do we keep having the conversation? Like, are you guys gonna do something? And so this leads me to a different thing about the WNBA. I've been talking about the WNBA a lot lately, and I'm so excited because, oh my gosh, I've been making content about it, and I've gotten a lot of followers and stuff from it, and I think it's really cool because when I was younger, I wanted to play in the WNBA. Like, I remember I'd be shooting with my dad outside, and I was like, I want to go to the WNBA, and I want to be like Candace Parker. And I just think that is so sweet to think back on and look back on. Unfortunately, sometimes other passions take precedent over that, but I've been seeing a lot of like women in college basketball getting a chance or getting a shot at living their dream and joining and being a part of the WNBA and doing big things and going to be great and moving the game forward and, making strides for women in sports. And I think that it's really cool, but it was a part of my existential crisis. I was kind of like, it is so crazy that these people my age, not even just these people, but actively women my age are going and living their dreams and doing what they've always dreamed of. And I was like, so what the hell am I doing? That's where the existential crisis came in. I'm like, I'm so happy for these women. Like, I am beyond ecstatic. I have watched a lot of them play over their college careers, and they're super talented. And I'm so glad that they're getting, that they're being recognized for that. And I hope that people, watch the games and enjoy them, because I think the WNBA is super, it's just fun to watch. Like, I enjoy it. I think that women's basketball it's just such a high IQ game, because I think that they really have to be really thoughtful about the way that they win. It's not just about who can be the most athletic and who can make the most dunks and who can do the most pick and rolls and stuff like that. I think that the women's game, to me, has always felt, it is a bit slower paced, but it's a lot more, to me, women's basketball is more about the fundamentals. And that's really what I love about it. Nobody in the WNBA is out on the floor just playing off of pure talent. Like, they have a brain up there. There's a bigger plan. They're following through on what the coach has planned. And I just really love watching women's baskarball. And I've been watching a little bit more women's soccer. I don't really get it, but like I'm looking, I'm watching, and I'm having a good time. Also, before I get back more into the WNBA, girl, those sorry ass Golden State Warriors, I'm gonna stick beside them. I'm gonna stick beside them. But if I don't see a big on that floor next season, we're gonna have a problem. And I'm not gonna lie, I was getting a lot of hate. Sorry to the people who don't like sports. I was getting a lot of hate for saying Steve Kerr is not that great of a coach. And I'm not going to say that he's completely talentless or anything like that. It's just really hard for me sometimes to sit there and be like, he's a really great coach, when fans who have been watching this team for numerous years or for the past few seasons, like myself, and we can see and point out where the problems are, and the coaching staff in the front office aren't doing anything to make those changes, and then are going and actively admitting those mistakes in like postseason press conferences. And it's like, so you knew all along, but you just didn't want to make the changes. Got it. Roster Ben needed a big. Could have gone and got like a DeMarcus Cousins or a Dwight Howard when he worked out. Did he work out over this preseason? I want to say he did, but I don't really remember for sure. I just know that they really needed a big, and when Kevon Looney was not playing that well, and really I'm just really mad at Steve Kerr because he let the veteran rotation that won him a championship 2 years ago keep playing, even though that obviously wasn't working. And I'm not going to say that Draymond Green is not responsible for some of the problems that happened this season, because I truly believe had he been on the floor more, I think we may be looking at a different version of this team. I'm not going to say that they would have made it to the finals or they would have made a deep, well, actually I do think they could have made a deeper playoff run, but I just think that there were a lot of problems here and the writing was on the wall for a lot of people. Like, I think that some people don't like to believe that you can kind of do a quick eye test of a basketball team and kind of know what the problems are, but you can. And those problems weren't fixed, and they were noticed by the fans and by other people, and they just didn't get fixed. Like, there were opportunities to make those adjustments earlier on. I think that if you stop playing the veteran starting lineup or the championship lineup that you had used, I think if you stop doing that earlier, you're looking at a different record. It gives you more time to figure things out, not just trying to make that work just because it worked before. I think you're just looking at a different product in the end in general. But yeah, that was pretty troublesome. Anyways, the WNBA, I have been, like I said, making a lot of videos about it, and it's been really nice. And again, I've just really been thinking lately, like, what am I doing with my life? And that's really what the existential crisis was about this week. It was really just, what am I doing? Like, am I doing what I want to do? Am I doing what I love? And after my birthday, I usually hit that low. I do. I'm usually like, dang, what am I doing with my life? Like, what's going on? And I think it's really easy to sit there and force yourself to be grateful. And like, you know, the day of your birthday and stuff like that. But sometimes those low moments do sneak up on you, and it got me. It did. Life won. But yeah, seeing these women in the WNBA living their dreams and stuff is absolutely amazing, and I'm excited for this season. I'm excited to see what they do for the game, and there's a lot of talent. I know that even more talent is coming, and I'm just really excited, and I'm really glad that there are people who are getting interested in the WNBA, and it's just really exciting. I'm really happy about it, and I hope to keep making content about it because I enjoy watching it. And I think I might actually pay for the league pass this year. I don't really know. My money be funny, so I guess we'll like wait and see. But yeah, I'm excited. Anywho, but yeah, I've just really been thinking about, to tie everything together, when we talk about like celebrities and influencers and the things going on in the world, again, I think sometimes things just are what they are. Like, these are the cards that we've been dealt, and I think that we just have to work what we have. Like, in the perfect world, it would be really great to think and believe that people with money would, you know, put other people's needs over themselves. But at the same time, like, when you ask yourself, if that were you in that position, would you do the same thing? And I think for a lot of people, I think a lot of times you want to believe that you would choose to do something else, but I don't think you know until you're there and you're in it. I really don't. But yeah, those are those topics. Let's see if we've got something else, guys. Because I think I wrote one thing down in my notes. I just don't remember what it was. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, yeah, I talked about that last week. That was funny. Anyways. Oh. Well, I guess I'll talk about that and then I'll wrap it up. It'll be a short episode this week. I did want to talk about, how do I approach this? I talked about this on my TikTok. I don't know if you people know who Paige Beckers is. She's a really great basketball player. She plays for UConn, and she's cool. You know, I've been watching her for a while. She did have some injuries and stuff, but she got through some of those and was, you know, able to play a lot of the season, if not all of the season. And she went to the Final Four with her team, which was really cool. And it was just really nice. So she went to the WNBA draft, and people have been posting stuff about her even before then. They've been making edits, and I'm not gonna lie, it's been getting a bit inappropriate, yes. And so I had kind of talked about that on my page, and I thought it was just interesting. I just think that we some people have to calm down a little bit with the parasocial relationships, and I get it, like finding somebody attractive and stuff, but like some of y'all are about to sit there and fumble the bag. Some of y'all are about to sit there and fumble the bag. Y'all are gonna scare the girlies off the internet with all of these edits and fanfics and these inappropriate comments and questions and press conferences. And I'm just like, y'all have got to slow your roll a little bit, like, because a lot of celebrities and stuff have talked about how they feel objectified and sexualized and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that's what she's feeling, because I don't know. I just know that sometimes like there's like a very like thin line there that can exist sometimes. And maybe one day it's like, oh, flattering to, you know, for people to find you attractive and to talk about you or whatever. And then I know that at some point, sometimes it can get to the point of being like, okay, like, can you guys like calm down and relax a little bit? So like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, all of y'all are sick and you're disgusting and all of that, because I don't think that. But at the same time, I think that some of you do need to be act a little more normal, have a little more shame. Cause for me personally, I can't really have anybody thinking I'm a fan like that. Not me. Especially because there are some people who are like, oh, I want them, I want to date them and stuff like that. And it's just like, okay, you're doing that, but then you're leaving strange comments on the TikToks, and you're leaving weird comments on the Instagram posts, and your edits are directly on your main personal TikTok page. And it's like, girl, some of y'all are fumbling the bag. Because like, if you really think about it, would you want to date a fan? Would you want to date a fan? Because like, when I think about that, and when even celebrities talk about dating or getting married or something, they're kind of like, they either want somebody who's in the industry and knows what it's like, or they want somebody who doesn't really know them for real like that. It's very rare that a celebrity is like, oh yeah, I would date a fan. Because why would you want to do that? Why would you want to date somebody who knows more about you than you know about them? Why would you want that? Like, really ask yourself that. Because I wouldn't want that. That's just me though. I don't really need to know. I don't really need anybody to know me like that before. I don't really need anybody to know me like that. So some of y'all gotta chill out a little bit, okay? Act normal. Act like you have a little shame, okay? Because I think, like I talked about last week, some people get on the internet and act like they don't know what's going on. They act like they're not going to experience any consequences and stuff. But then, like, if like some of these players or whatever stop getting on social media as much, they stop doing lives, and stuff like that, then y'all gonna be acting confused when it's like y'all made them feel uncomfortable on the internet and stuff. So why would they want to come on here and talk to y'all? And that goes for like any celebrity, really, because it's kind of a little strange. Anyways, wow, a good Coke. If you saw that on the YouTube channel just now, wow. I love a Coke, not sponsored. That is actually one of my biggest dreams. I've been talking about this for like years now. I really, really hope that Coke sponsors me one day. Like, I love Coca-Cola so much. Like, it's not even funny. My favorite is from the fountain, but really the can. The can is the first option. And then like a regular fountain, not the Coke Freestyle machine, because the Coke Freestyle machine is very low on my totem pole. Then a bottle of Coke, really a 2 liter of Coke is over that. So a 2 liter and the bottle, because the bottle's recyclable now, and I don't know why I get a funny taste from that. And then a Freestyle machine Coke. And I don't need all the extra flavoring. I don't need the cherry. I don't need the cherry vanilla. I don't need the vanilla. I don't need the Coke lemon, the Coke lime, all the options that they have in the Freestyle machine. I don't need none of that. I don't need Coke sparkled, spiked. I don't need none of that. Give me the regular can, okay? Give me the regular stuff. I don't need all the fancy extras. Just this is enough. When I was younger, though, I would get like a Coke and then I get like a lemon. You know how you can get like sweet tea with a lemon? Sometimes I would get a little lemon and I would just put it in there, but you couldn't taste it because it was a tiny little lemon. But yeah, this was real. I really enjoyed this conversation. Let me see if I wanted to tie back that. No, I didn't. I was trying to think if I wanted to tie back that influencer stuff. I do think, final point, I do think that we need to be more careful about who we make famous and who we give like a platform to. Yes, but also at the same time, I think that a lot of times people don't end up coming off the way that you eventually see them. So at the same time that, yes, it is important to make sure that we're platforming the right people, it's also like a lot of the people don't slip up until they have the platform. So there's that. And yeah, I think having expectations for people is important, and at the same time recognizing that other people aren't going to have the same expectations for them that you have for them is important. And so I think that goes along with the billionaire and celebrity conversation in general, is that yeah, we have an expectation for maybe the people around us to be wanting more and better for the people in their communities, and at the same time some of those people don't have that expectation for themselves, let alone for the other people to do that. So I think that sometimes we just do have to understand that we have to work with what we have. And yeah, I think that that's just an important thing to remember. So if you have any things to add to any of these conversations, feel free to do that. And I really enjoyed this episode. It was fun for me. It felt like an old version of the episode. It took like 17 takes to get this one, but that doesn't mean that I don't love it still. But yeah, feel free to like and subscribe on whatever you're listening to this on. Follow the page so that you're updated on whenever there's new episodes. New episodes usually go up every Saturday at 7 a.m. and then the audio version, and then the video version is usually up on YouTube by 5 p.m. It's usually earlier than that, but in case one day I goof 5 p.m. and I think there was one time I goofed and it didn't go up till like 7 p.m. But that rarely ever happens. Anywho, thanks so much for listening, watching, and yeah, this was nice. Maybe I'll update you guys on what happened on my birthday next week. I'll probably forget, so don't count on it. Okay, guys, bye.